Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for making time. We have three eminent panelists today with us. Mr. Tarun Agarwal, who's the Executive VP and R&D, electrical, and connected system from Maruti Suzuki. We have Mr. Rajiv Chaba, President and MG Motor India, and we have Ms. Ujjwala Karle, Lead Technology Group, ARAI. So thank you everyone for being here. It's a real pleasure talking to all of you. Mr. Agarwal, I just as a market leader, right? You've expressed views on ADAS, saying multiple times that it can help us move into a vision of collision-free roads. It'll help us in managing the traffic better, reducing emissions and innovations through high technology areas. My question to you is that how useful do you think is ADAS to Indian conditions, which is, we all know it's high on traffic and pedestrian density, non-standardized lane design, traffic signals, etc. So any views from your perspective?
I think any new technology is definitely beneficial. There is no doubt, especially ADAS technologies. They have been there and they've been mandated. Some of them are very prevalent in US and Europe. So definitely, I think nobody can deny that they're relevant for India as well. Only thing is that before we bring these technologies to India, we have to be aware of the conditions in India and ensure that our decisions are based on reasonable amount of data so that we don't create any secondary issues in Indian context. Also, I think one of the key things for India is to save lives. Perhaps we have the worst record among countries of our size, okay, 1.5 lakh plus deaths every year. And I think government has brought a huge amount of focus on that, especially the Minister for Road Transport, Mr. Gadkari, and the new Motor Vehicle Act. I think that there's a very clear focus towards that. So I think keeping that focus in mind, multiple things need to be done. And ADAS also could be one of those technologies which can definitely save lives on Indian roads. But as I said, with the word of caution, that our traffic conditions, all of us must have seen traffic conditions in multiple countries. They're very different in India. So unless you have due testing and analysis of what really works for India, it could be a little dicey to bring technologies without doing that.
Understood. That makes sense. Let me bring in Ms. Curley here. That as a regulator, right? I mean, who from the government standpoint, your views on how much error a machine can make, and what will be the acceptance level by people. We all know that more than 80% of the accident happens because of driver negligence. Can this technology be simply adopted for India, right? And if yes, right, I mean, how do you think it can happen?
I think I will go with what Tarun sir has said. Uh, it's basically the technology can be similar or simpler, but solutions has to be Indian. So we strongly believe that technology is global, but solutions has to be developed for the Indian use cases and Indian parts. And there were probably the requirement of having a data which is very specific to India. Uh, Having a possibility of creating innovations or solutions is really immensely high. Unlike other things, we can't really adopt ADAS as it is by itself, because our Indian use cases are entirely different. And the technology has to be adapted to give the solutions for these Indian use cases. Then only it will be useful and it will be accepted and adopted. Apart from that, I believe it's different category and classes of the vehicles that have to be really targeted. As Tarun sir has earlier said, it's true that we are looking at accidents to be reduced. A very strong focus on that to reduce the number of accidents. We also call Vision Zero or zero deaths due to the accidents, different focus areas given by the ministry and the government of India to reduce number of accidents by 50% in next 3 years, 5 years. So in all those cases, ADAS definitely might have a very, very strong solution possibility if it is developed for India and Indian use cases for a different category of vehicles. So we can't really restrict ourselves to ADAS. We have to really look into ADAS, riding assist. We have number of vehicles there also, yes, very strongly dealt with. Each one will have a different priority, according to me, and different solutions.
So, moving on to which Ms. Curley referred to, right, that the right use cases need to be adopted. And Mr. Chava, you have recently launched, Hector and Gloucester, which is with the positioning of intuitive driving, right? And I think you have launched some very stellar features like, LDW, FCW, APA, ACC, anything which is probably, I could say, it was only for the luxury car market, to be honest, right? Extreme luxury. In a in a price bracket where you have launched this particular technology in the vehicles, it's really commendable. Do you foresee ADAS as driving sales, or are they, still good to have but not must-have features for the Indian buyers right now? That's one. And second is probably, if you can touch upon that, you've have introduced many use cases. Which do you think will gain the most traction with the Indian consumer?
So before I answer these questions, I'll build on what Tarun and Ujjwala said, actually. It's part of evolution of any market. So technology helps you, on safety side, economic side, convenience to consumer, as well as environmental issues. So in this particular case of ADAS, as we all know, it's basically aiding or helping the driver to reduce some road accidents and nudge him and assist him to, drive safely. Now, as Tarun and Ujjwala both talked about the road fatalities case in India, it's very acute, and we contribute only 1% to the population of the world, but in terms of vehicle population, but the accidents are almost 6 times that.
Yes.
So I think this is one area where we need to do something about it for sure. But I think the very important thing, which both again Tarun and Ujjwala talked about, is that you just cannot import or bring the technology and just implement it here. It has to be really tweaked for Indian road conditions. It has to be, you have to consider the Indian driving, not only road conditions, but also the Indian drivers' habits and the way they drive it. So I'll give you a small example. Like when we have automatic emergency braking in Gloucester, now, you can have it for 4-wheelers, 2-wheelers, and animals on the road. Now, animals on the road testing you will not do anywhere, right? But here you have to do it. And to have automatic emergency braking, if a dog comes or buffalo comes, or 2-wheeler comes, or cyclist comes, or rickshaw comes, right? Then it becomes a very, it becomes more of a nuisance than a practicality on Indian roads. So I think so we decided, let's say we will go it only for 4-wheelers at this point of time. So we have to tweak that for Indian conditions, and slowly, hopefully, when you have better road conditions, or you have better highways which are like only for 4-wheelers, then probably is going to be done in a different way. So a lot of Indian companies or Indian-based companies like Bosch India and these companies are useful, who help you validate and do the testing. So I think that's very, very important. Now, coming to the sales part, the question which you asked. See, I doubt it's going to be straight away resulting into sales. I think it depends how do you position your brand, how do you position your product in a particular segment, and this probably becomes a competitive edge over a period of time if you keep doing your game well and technology becomes part of your brand DNA. So I think direct correlation probably is not the right way of doing it. But I would say, from MG perspective, we said that technology is going to be one important pillar of our brand in the country. And so we got connected car, we got this, we are not solutions. There are no perfect solutions right now, and even in these things we are learning. So it is just a start from our side, and I think we need to keep improving. Coming to specific features, the last point, personally, I love adaptive cruise control. Though guys will say that where are the highways in India, and how much you can drive and things like that. But whatever small areas you get on highway, adaptive cruise control is my favorite. The park assist again is a pretty good area for tight parking, and even very mundane kind of a thing, lane departure warning, I find it very useful.
Do you think a highway chauffeur is also going to come in very soon, along with the adaptive cruise?
It will keep evolving,
Yeah.
and when you bring it first, always there would be, lots of doubts. But as in the case of connected car, we have seen, when we were trying to bring connected car, guys said, hey, in India, you have 2G and 3G, and this works only on 4G. So what happens when a car moves from a 4G environment to 2G, the streaming will not happen and things like that. Yeah, I understand that. And our customers also, I think, kind of understand. They're not very happy that it's not seamless, but 90% of the time it works. So I think all the features and all this technology may have its flaws initially, but unless you try it, you will not master it. But again, there should not be any compromise with the safety of the occupants. So having said that, I think you have to keep experimenting and keep validating for Indian conditions. So yeah, lots of features probably would come.
Thanks, Mr. Chava, for that useful insights. Mr. Agarwal, I mean, I think all of you did touch upon that about the tech, right? I mean, basically, it's mainly comprising of processors, sensors, softwares, location data, etc. How much of this technology is imported versus locally available, and how do you think that the Indian ecosystem is positioned for these manufacturing and you can say testing these components within India itself?
I'll break it into different parts. So as far as I think evaluating in India, testing in India, and that definitely is possible. Many of the global companies have their R&D centers in India. I think most auto companies also have some experimental projects, some work being done in India. I think that's definitely possible to test and develop in India. As far as manufacturing is concerned, I think that's a different ballgame altogether. Okay, that depends on purely volumes, and I think economies of scale, not just from Indian market perspective. Today, perhaps these kind of components are concentrated in a very few places in the world, maybe 7, 8, 10 places only. All global needs are being met from. So to say that tomorrow suddenly they'll start getting made in India is a little tough. And I think that's also one reason you have to weigh very carefully the technologies you get to India, what will they result in. On one side, we're talking fairly strongly that we should have things which are made in India, developed in India, for India. But at the same time, you will perhaps end up bringing technologies, and then as the volume picks up, then perhaps the effort will be done to localize them and also suit for Indian use cases. So once again, development-wise, definitely it is possible. But I think the biggest challenge is the applicability to India. So for example, I mean, we did some testing in India. So there's a very unique. You have an auto emergency braking in India, and suddenly you one fine say you are trying to overtake somebody, and there is something coming on the other side. So it becomes very challenging for the vehicle to judge whether to brake or actually not to brake. If you brake, you might cause an accident. Right. So there are very, very challenging situations which absolutely don't exist in other markets.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no question of a Japan or Europe or something, somebody is coming on the wrong side of a highway or something. In India, perhaps every 100 kilometers you drive, I would feel that you will see a couple of tractors or something coming on the other side of the road. So I think we have to be aware of that. And that can also cause a little bit of concern for the driver and also nuisance. As Rajiv said, nuisance is a big issue. Another example, for example, in US, when you drive, I think the first thing you're told is that you have to be at least more than 1.5 car lengths away from the car in front of you. In India, typically, when you're driving, you could be as close as 2 meters or something. And if you're trying to give warning in that situation, then you will be beeping all the time from Delhi to Jaipur. So situations are very different. As somebody said, driving habits are very, very different. So how do you find the best balance is very important in Indian context.
Absolutely. And given the manufacturing, you said that it is going to take time, right? I mean, so does it mean that for sub 10 lakh segment, I mean, the Indian market will have to wait for these kind of interesting?
I don't think that's the case. A lot of technologies Rajiv mentioned about connected and all. I don't think everything has been indigenized as yet. Indigenization cannot be the only reason to bring it to India. Only thing is, if our objective is to save lives, then there are other things which we need to do first. Right? And we should definitely do them. So for example, somebody said about data. In India, you don't have much of accident analysis data. Okay, for 1.5 lakh deaths, accidents are around maybe 5 odd lakh accidents happen every year. Detailed analysis is only done by a couple of agencies. One is RASI, there is somebody else. And in a year, we are doing some maybe 800-900 accident data analysis, maybe less. Okay, whatever government data is available is purely numbers. There is no detail. You don't even have a detail to the level that what are the two vehicles which are colliding. You have total number of 4-wheelers, 2-wheelers or something. Today, that kind of data is also not available. So people who implemented these things in other markets, made regulations, they're purely based on data. If you look at Europe's example, they've studied 10 years of fatality data, detailed analysis of accident, then decided that maybe this kind of regulation is relevant for India. In Japan, for example, the Automotive Association, they decided that they will do some things. So, for example, Japanese population is very old. So mistake in pressing the pedal was becoming very common. So they decided that they will together take action to avoid such accidents. And all that is based on detailed data analysis that where to invest. Today, India, affordability is very poor. You don't want to make cars out of the reach of the people. So that's why I said the solutions have to be very relevant for India. Okay? And you should be clear of our objective.
No, well said, well said. And Ms. Curley, I mean, any reactions from your side? Because from a data standpoint, what is it that the government is gearing up for, which actually the industry can benefit from? And I'm sure the industry will also be willing to participate in this entire exercise. Any views from your side or any actions that you're planning to take?
I think there is a point right. Actually, data is a key here. We say Indian use cases by itself, it is a data, it's accident data. Apart from that, Shabasa has said that getting Indian vehicle classes, two-wheeler, three-wheeler cycles, all those data is very important. And whatever we say that India is such a heterogeneous and bigger country that doing this data collection in isolation is very difficult, very difficult. Of course, ARI is definitely trying to do and create some databases by their own. Of course, we are also trying to talk to different people and get them on board. There could be a lot of IT people or service engineering companies, or even ideally, I feel we should also partner with SIM and auto manufacturers to create such databases for Indian conditions and Indian contexts. And such databases and use cases will be two reasons important. One is, as Tarun sir has said, it is basically looking into which are the key features. Of course, we have different intuitive and knowledge of the market that we do have. But beyond that, I think it will be more scientific data. And second is creating a data which will be test cases data for these cases like AEB, as Surya said earlier. AEB use cases are entirely different. If we have the same AEB which is working outside in India and test the same way that we are doing outside, just we normally follow the European regulations, we still do the same for AEB, it won't work that way. We have to have, so we have created some proposals with CIM and ARI and are trying to submit it to MORTH and DHI for the funding agencies. But beyond these such government-funded projects, we are also looking at partnering and creating databases by our own. We have some tie-ups with the local bodies, like we have a tie-up now with Telangana, with Pune, and such people created traffic density, black spot data, such kind of data collections happening. But as I said, right, though it is really very much required, it is really heterogeneous. We have to have a collaboration to collect the data and create a knowledge database. And it will be useful for everyone who will try to have a solutions in this domain for the Indian use cases.
No, absolutely. So is there a plan to set up some sort of a collaboration between, like you said, ARI, CIM, etc., and with,
currently we are
from any global or any global market, so to say? Have you got any experts to come in and help you out with that?
Currently, we are trying to have collaborations at different level, trying to understand how it can be done. As I said, one of the example, we are trying to have a proposal submitted to Ministry for data collections for the Indian roots. We are also trying to have our own data collection methods established around here. We are trying to look at different engineering industry, but there is also a project which is launched at a government level for Vision Zero, which is called Cities. It is though with Sweden and India collaboration partnership project, wherein we are trying to collect the data from Bangalore, Hyderabad as a first pilot project. As partnering with them from government perspective. We also had conducted a workshop last couple of weeks for Vision Zero understanding at different stakeholders at government level. So it's really a multi-level, multi-directional way of working. And if any such proposal from CIM or from anybody government, we are really pleased to collaborate and work. We are internally also finding out how best it can be done because data collection, we strongly understand it is need of the hour.
Thank you. Mr. Chava, while most of the ADAS systems today are intended to get the driver back in control, right? Do you see any of these technologies will help us get closer to driverless, or it is still a far-fetched dream for the Indian market? Or will we have some driverless lanes clearly demarcated.
I think
Any
we have heard about Indian typical driving conditions. So frankly, I know that some guys may not like my answer, but I think it's a far-fetched dream for India to imagine a driverless car and driverless lanes at this point of time. But that's an utopia. At least in the next 20, 30 years, I can't see that. Because this has to go through a whole lot of evolution. And certain features which are important for India, and also you talked about affordability. I think that's important right now. Even the basic ADAS features what we have, some luxury cars have it. MG has got it in Gloucester. Some other cars probably would have it. But unless like it gets democratized, unless it gets really become affordable, unless let's say Maruti puts the weight behind, Maruti and Hyundai kind of giants, they put their weight behind, it won't be mass. It won't be it won't be pervasive. And coming back to the manufacturing part, which is very, very important, and the government is identifying few sectors, and they are giving this PMI kind of scheme, performance based incentive and some initial incentives, and the whole idea is to localize some of these components in India over the next 5-6 years time, handhold the industry, and after that hopefully the competitive nature of the industry takes over. And so it means some players or some entrepreneurs, some big businessmen, if they come into manufacturing of these kind of components at a global scale, at a large scale, government wants to incentivize them and encourage them. So I think things are possible. Things will change for sure. But coming to driverless, I think we need to understand in Western countries, they are trying to do it also as part of reducing the cost of the operations, also safety, obviously enhance the safety, and also as part of the whole smart projects and vehicle-to-vehicle communication, vehicle-to-infrastructure communication. So a whole lot of things are there as part of that ultimate goal. In India, it's slightly premature, in my opinion, to discuss that. But at least I'm happy. At least we are talking. In how many forums we have talked about ADAS? How many forums in India we have talked about connected car? To my knowledge, in last 1 year, we have started talking about it in public forums like this. So it's a start. It's a good thing. So things will improve and things will, change.
Any views? I'm just taking this utopia to the next level now with my next question to Mr. Agarwal. That probably it's not as utopian, but vehicle-to-vehicle communication, is that going to happen anytime soon? And we all know what happened. US literally demarcated a large portion of a spectrum and kept it aside, which remained highly unutilized, and now they're planning to split it for the regular wireless usage. So, what do you think on that front, on vehicle-to-vehicle connectivity?
I think we are jumping the gun. We have to. I mean, we have to get through the class nursery first.
Yeah.
And then try and do a PhD after that. So I think we are. Only thing is that all these technologies can be relevant in certain situations. Okay? So for example, in India, agricultural labor is also a challenge in India to some extent. So agriculture could be a very unique use case where some kind of ADAS or driverless or something may happen in a very controlled environment. It is quite possible that use case is relevant for India. Underlying technology may be exactly same. So something may not happen on public road. There could be mining. Mining is a big industry in India. Okay, there could be defense applications. Okay, in desert or something, you perhaps want automated things to be able to do something from A to B. So there could be those kind of use cases definitely which are relevant for India. And also because underlying technology is same, once the technology is available and when other conditions suit, it can definitely be used interchangeably.
I was just complimenting Tarun that it's very good examples he's citing. These can be really good for India, and in certain industries, definitely technology can be used the right way, which is meaningful and impactful.
Okay, so I think V2X also might have some use cases. So for example, today, if you look at the industry of electricity meters, for example, today I think they are connected, and perhaps all state boards are doing that. The underlying technology is very, very similar actually. So it is quite possible that you might have a backbone in the country for communication due to some other reason, and that might get used for vehicles as well.
Absolutely.
So, and India has leapfrogged as far as connected is concerned in many ways. I mean, not everybody had a landline or internet at home, but most people do have a mobile and internet through mobile. Similarly, there may be some use cases, but whether it will become mainstream tomorrow on every other vehicle on the road, that's a little unlikely. One more point, I think we discussed about ADAS and safety and lives and about data. What I understand is that government has started an initiative called, I think, IRAD, where they are developing a mobile app, okay, or already developed, I presume, which will be given to policemen. And they will be able to do some basic photos and input of the data at the time of accident. I think it is developed by IIT Chennai. I think government is working on its own and doing something. I wish it was a little bit more initiative where a lot of people can participate and contribute. People who have the know-how can contribute. But still, if government is able to do that, and at least going forward, the data, and I think the interface is such that maybe police, and even if somebody reaches a hospital, everybody agency can input data in the same. And every accident would be serialized. There will be a number to identify the accident and all is what I understand. I don't have much details, but I think that's a very good initiative. It is implemented well. That can really help to generate data over the next years. And then that can be used for making better analysis and making better decisions.
Absolutely. I think we all agree that we don't need ADAS as a replacement for driver. It is more an enabler for the drivers. But in any
Yeah,
which
well
way,
said.
there's a huge communication involved in this whole thing, right? Like any other new technology that comes into play. Do you think it'll be Indian consumer is well adopted and they'll be fast to pick this up? Or will there be hiccups? What kind of communication platforms do we need to set? Or it'll be left to individual car makers to communicate the benefits as well as usage of various features.
I think, it becomes, at the end of the day, collective force, and somebody starts it, more people join it. But I think it happens from all the stakeholders ultimately to make it an effective campaign. So as an example, if we talk about, let's say, electric vehicle at this point of time, government took the initiative, government started talking about it. Now more and more players are coming into it. And, every year you are seeing 2, 3 new additions, and everybody is talking about, EV, like do's and don'ts, range anxiety, how do you charge, infrastructure, So I think all the stakeholders have to play their role. It cannot be done by one single individual. And slowly that becomes a force multiplier. And that's true for any industry. Let's talk about in finance industry, let's say, people talk about mutual fund. So who talks about mutual fund is a better way of investing than shares, right? Or debts or debentures. So then mutual fund itself, like the whole industry came together and they are talking about, like benefits of mutual industry. So likewise here, connected car as an example, all the players have started talking about it. And from consumer perspective minded, this is important. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, consumers actually are willing to accept, willing to test, willing to adapt to new technologies faster than what we think. The problem is that they don't have choices. As an example, automatic transmission. When we do segment analysis and we say, hey, in this segment, automatic transmission penetration is only 20%. It's not that people are not buying it. The fact is people don't have choices, and that's why it's limited to 20%. Likewise, EV, whole last year, electric vehicles, 1,000 odd electric vehicles were sold throughout the year. This year, Tata Nexon and our ZS EV both have crossed 1,000 already, in this year. So there are always takers. And on even ADAS thing, let me tell you, when I drive my Gloucester, lots of guys have stopped me on the road and said, "Ki ye apne aap gaadi ruk jati hai kya?" So guys are interested, consumer are interested to know what's happening, and they are ready to experiment and drive. Yes, the whole industry, the government side, private players, and not only by the OEMs, the part manufacturers, like in EV, we have seen even, the charger companies, the battery companies, everybody has to play a role in educating the customer. Only thing I would say, the caveat is, we need to be very, very cautious about the whole testing in India, and it cannot be at the cost of any accident or safety, because this technology should not result into more safety issues. As Tarun was saying, you're speeding up and trying to overtake, and one truck coming from the other side, you don't know to brake, or so that's a good example. So we cannot take those kind of risks. But having said that, I think we need to, I think join forces and act as one body, because it's going to happen and it's happening as we speak. So all these changes, new technology is going to come. We cannot deny it.
Absolutely. And the example that you took of financial services, right? I mean, payments, right? I mean, India has literally leapfrogged, significantly compared to the rest of the world. But it not only, and the consumer was interestingly very, very fast to pick up, not only because of the convenience, etc., but also a lot of force and push from the government side to digitalize the entire economy. So, Miss Karle, I mean, that brings me to the next point on, what is it that how is the, specifically, let's say ARAI planning to enable this change through your startup ecosystem or collaboration, or, are there anything else which is there in play? Mr. Agarwal did mention about IRAD, but how are you enabling this ecosystem to leapfrog into the next level?
When we are talking about solutions for India, beyond hardware like sensors and other thing, one of the most important thing in ADAS is the software, or a decision making, a logical thinking, and there's where probably a lot of possibility of innovations, where we are talking about solutions for India. A lot of innovation is possible. One of the examples I would say it is, you would say V2X or whatever it is, a data which is collected by smart cities for the during traffic running on the roads. People have identified, put up algorithms where to find out the two-wheeler riders not wearing the helmets and just enabling them. So such kind of lot of software related developments are possible with the small scale innovators, innovation companies, startups. And we are looking at, I believe, the possibility of having beyond B2C, B2B startups. So business problem statements and business solutions. So having the connects with the B2B is probably a bigger ecosystem to trigger with. That's what ARI strongly believes and want to enable this through our startup support networks. It also talks about having testing methodologies, simulation methodologies, tool access, which is very difficult for people to get simply by having a startup. They don't understand the use cases of automotive. They are from different domain. Connecting them to the automotive domain knowledge and know-how requirements, giving the test facilities, giving the tooling facilities, giving the connects to the experts. That is what we are really looking at. So that the whole ecosystem of Atmanirbhar Bharat or enabling innovations, enabling startup ecosystem by itself is gathers the momentum. And that's what ARI's role will be, more as an enabler, more as a catalyst. We call ourselves as enabling S-Cube, that is safe, smart, and sustainable mobility through E-Cube that ARI has, wherein E-Cube stands for equipment, expertise, and experience that we do take in the automotive segment by itself. And that is what probably we will give it to the startups and smaller companies and players to talk about and to really discuss with.
Mr. Agarwal, looks like ARI is already up on the job with a lot of interesting stuff happening. I mean, you're the biggest player in the Indian market, to be honest, like Mr. Chapa said, unless and until somebody like you dive right into this whole thing and create probably a movement around this whole thing, right? Things probably will take much more time than it is expected. So what is it that you are planning to do as the market leader, and what is it that you want others to actually do to enable this ecosystem, which Mr. Karle spoke about?
I think as Maruti, we are very clear road safety is very important to us. I think a lot of our CSR, a lot of other activities we do are linked to road safety. And we are totally focused on that, and whatever is required, we are doing for that. So I think that's our first priority. So for example, the couple of years ago, the seatbelt campaign, Pehni Kya campaign we ran. Okay, after that, we have done a lot of analysis. I'll share something interesting with you. So this is based on some kind of data mining we did based on the RASI consortium's accident data. And you realize that approximately out of all the deaths, around 30,000 deaths are happening in four-wheelers, which are M1 category, passenger cars, SUVs, and those kind of vehicles. In those vehicles, if you are able to actually increase the seatbelt compliance, out of that, around 30% deaths would be saved just by ensuring that people are wearing seatbelts. Okay, so our focus is to do first basic things right. Okay, so whether you are actually, I mean, these days, SpaceX launched that something new rocket too. So you have to wear a seatbelt, whether in a rocket or on a road or on a Maruti 800 perhaps. So seatbelt is important. Okay. And today also in India, the compliance of seatbelt has gone up from maybe 4 or 5 years ago, 10, 12, 15% to maybe 30% now. But still, we are way behind, especially if you look at the rear seatbelt, we rarely use. And there have been very, very popular, famous cases of politicians, other people losing their lives just because they were not wearing a seatbelt. So I think our focus before we really talk so much about these kind of technologies is that as a nation do basic things right, so that roads are safe to use. And today, I mean, our car penetration is what, around 20, I think 20 odd per thousand or something. We compared to nations which we are benchmarking, which we are competing with, we are much behind. But if our basic, the way we use shared resources, road is also a shared resource on all the users. The way we use it, unless we improve that, we actually don't deserve to have more vehicles. Okay, just more people will lose lives. So I think our focus first is to ensure that those basics are right. We work with anybody, government, people like ARAI, anybody, and ensure that we make roads a safer place. With that, motorization will grow, and as it grows, the ecosystem automatically will grow for need of higher technologies. Okay, so sorry, not getting into the details of software and what kind of processor and what kind of things are required. That's what I think we are focused on. We'll keep on the other side, of course, we sell vehicles in Europe, other markets where we are giving these systems. We have done thousands of kilometers of testing, and based on the examples I shared were based on that testing actually. So Mr. Chava mentioned they are able to recognize four-wheelers, but we had a horrendous task recognizing tractors filled with husk or paddy or something. So you have that huge thing which is driving on the road. 80% of the area from behind is that huge packing of husk in it, and it is not very easily visible to radars. So how do you handle such situations? So do you think you need multiple sensors in a vehicle? In that situation, perhaps the sensor cost may be half of my vehicle cost of an Alto or something. Okay, so just a few examples. So I think we have to keep all those things in context. Okay, but as I said, as far as technology is concerned, there is no dearth of technology. A lot of autonomous software is being developed out of Bangalore for the whole world. If that can be done for the whole world out of Bangalore, I'm sure part of it can be done for India as well if the need is there.
So, so my take, Rajat, on this would be, and obviously in this forum, we can't talk about certain confidentialities and the project details, but my viewpoint would be like, our country is so unique and diversified, and we have so many sub-segments and so many different kind of situations that you require different solution. So as an example, like if I just say, because lots of guys in India are on bicycle, doesn't mean we don't need planes. So we need aeroplanes as well as we need bicycles. Likewise, lots of people can't afford even 50 rupees meal. Doesn't mean we need to have 5-star hotels. We need to have 5-star hotels, right? So because we need to have CNG vehicle, but same enough time, government also is promoting EV. So, you have different kind of solutions for different segments, different markets. And obviously we are talking about when can you have mass, or huge volumes. For that, I think, what Tarun said, I totally agree that, it will require a lot of time. It will require a lot of economies of scale. It will require, technology at a very cheap cost. So that's a different issue altogether. So as an example, if we talk about EV, till few years back, we couldn't have thought of a car at 13, 14 lakhs, but Tata Nexon has got 13, 14 lakhs of car right now. And if I can bet, I think Tarun's team will launch an EV maybe less than 10 lakhs soon. My bet. So, but we can't discuss all these things probably in this forum. So I think it is going to come down, right? The cost is going to come down for sure. So likewise, these technologies, again, ADAS, when we talk about it, Mercedes and some of the Mercedes models, BMW models, Volvos have already got in India. Gloster has come at a price range of 30, 35 lakhs of rupees, right? I'm sure somebody will do in 20 lakh segment soon in the next 1 year or 2 years, and then when you get volumes and when hopefully the government's incentive on PMI on certain items happen, then the cost keeps coming down. So then you will keep, so I think, from Maruti's position perspective, I totally agree with what Tarun said. Not only seatbelt, also the driving school thing, the initiative which Maruti has done, and they're training hundreds and thousands of drivers every year in safe driving conditions. That's the need from a leader perspective, which Maruti is doing it. But on the technology leadership side, again, I think something is required, and I think we need to keep doing it together on both. So we need to work on both the ends, in my opinion.
Got it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think India is a diverse country. So you have the wealthiest people of the world in India as well.
Yeah.
So I think only thing is that somehow everybody has to drive on the same road. So, I mean, airspace is a little perhaps easier to manage than roads. Unfortunately or fortunately, whether you're driving a bicycle or you're walking or Mercedes today, everything happens in India on the same road. And that is a big challenge, actually. I mean, nowhere in the world you go that on an expressway, you will suddenly find a cycle trying to cross the expressway. Okay, but it does happen in India. It does happen very often. But as Rajiv said, we need to overcome these challenges gradually. And I think all of us need to work together. And a lot of talk about connected. I think when you say connected, I think to implement connected first, people need to get connected. Agencies need to get connected before you actually can implement connected well.
Yeah.
So because the road is common and there are multiple stakeholders in that, whether it is central government, state government, policy makers, regulatory bodies, automakers, policemen, hospitals in case of emergencies, I think everybody should have a common agenda and common policy. Then perhaps we can definitely make things better and also achieve higher technology much more easily. The pain of adoption of technology would become much lesser if basic things are in place.
I think it's till the time the necessary, the takeaway is till the time the entire ecosystem gets connected, as you said, and we think on a common vision and come out with a very clear, probably levels of such technologies and at what speed and at what you can say scale it will be launched, right? I mean, this thing probably will take much more time. Until that, maybe it's as Mr. Chava was saying, that it is going to be specifically for people who can afford it and are willing to pay for it. Okay. So one last question from my side on the consumer standpoint, from a consumer stand right now, Mr. Chava, is do you think that we know people who can afford, would they be more cautious, or would they be would they want some more options in terms of let's say what do you call it, paying as they go, something like that? For example, I drive myself my own car, for example, right? I don't want to turn on the lane assist. Now, why should I pay such a huge amount of money for a lane assist feature, as an example, or adaptive cruise? But I want to switch it on probably when I'm going out for a weekend highway, like the way I'm doing right now. So is that also a distant dream? Okay, is there something which we can see in terms of pay as you go services?
So theoretically, that's possible, and what's happening right now is, one thing we are undermining a little bit, I think Ujjwala mentioned about that, the startup ecosystem, what's developing in our country and globally. So this startup system, in which lots and lots of bright minds are working on machine learning and AI and then all the sensors and lidars and all the system, you are finding lots and lots of very interesting solutions, and lots of pilots are happening as we speak. That also will accelerate and push and accelerate certain changes, in monetizing certain services on the car. So car as a platform, people talk about it. In future, they are talking software as a platform for the car itself, right? So people are talking about it. And Rajat, you coming from the consultancy industry, probably you know these things better than us. So there we are talking about monetizing certain streams. So as an example, in connected car, we have Ghana, so we give Ghana in the car. The Ghana app, right?
Yes.
And then you can stream Ghana, you can watch videos. Now we give certain MBs free, certain GBs free per month, let's say, but if you want more, then you have to pay more. So insurance, we have been talking about it since last few years now, based on the driver's habit. You can customize the insurance, and probably safe drivers can pay less insurance premium. We have been talking about it, but I think it's going to happen very soon. So again, that part can be monetized. So slowly, when we get into this habit of monetizing certain streams, I think even certain services like you are talking about, it's not impossible to imagine that people can pay for that. Though, right now also ADAS is not going to be in all the trim levels of the car, so people can choose. If they don't want those services, probably they will not opt for that kind of a trim level, which is costly. But you're talking about have more flexibility in terms of pay as per my usage, certain things. I think theoretically it's possible, practically it may take some time, but definitely monetization of certain streams is going to happen thanks to this startup world.
Ms. Curley, last question from the regulatory standpoint. Just any final words on what do you think the role, we've heard the industry players, right, speaking about it. What is the role that the government will need to play in terms of either providing incentives or creating the right platforms and having a long-term vision, right? I mean, as Mr. Agarwal was saying, that it's not something that can be a quick fix and it can come in very quickly. A lot of data, a lot of insights need to be generated before actions have to be taken. So what do you think government should do and is doing?
I think what government has definitely done is a high-level vision. What Tarun sir has started, it's reducing number of accidents, going to Vision Zero. So how the path has to be, they are leaving it to the technocrats and the business people to derive and come across. So the high-level aim and goal of government is definitely to reduce the accidents, and that is what is driving. The safety is going to drive it as, if at all it has to go in any of the regulatory or the mandatory mode of it. Currently, I would say it's more flexible, though at different level of regulations, different level of feasibility studies are being discussed. They are more scattered, as Tarun sir has said. But I think safety is the one which will drive. Second, I believe the awareness programs, the training programs, the overall creating a buzz, creating understanding that the driver actually, the interesting part when we talk about is the 80% accidents are because of the drivers, the way you have said. But at the same time, in all the ADAS or autonomous or driverless, people are talking about human behavior modeling. So we want them to accept the decisions taken by ADAS that time. And hence, actually creating that awareness, creating the interventions, possibilities, how it is going to help us, whatever function we decide upon, depending on the segment. I personally feel there would be a different segment and different priorities by itself. Like two-wheeler have different use cases, car segment definitely different, and the commercial vehicle segment where it runs a lot of VKT, like it runs all the way, whole number of kilometers driven by a commercial vehicle segment, heavy commercial segments are really very high. So if we can have an improvement in the safety and experience of those kind of vehicles, it will be a need of the hour as far as the safety is concerned and the awareness is concerned. So I think awareness program, training programs, giving more sensitization on the I think Digital India is definitely the program which is being pushed by government. Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India. There are so many initiatives happening which will have indirect or direct impact on the promotion of ADAS. Beyond that, it will be a more technical team which has to really create a roadmap on the priorities, and collaboratively and together should be presented and work towards it. And I think with this government, they would be able to push their high level goals through these initiatives. That's what my thought process is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karle. I think we are almost at the end of the session. If I have to, a brilliant session, first of all, thank you so much. I think if I have to just bring this whole perspective of what's in it for me, right? I mean, every stakeholder needs to have something in it, whether it is government, which you spoke about safety, for the government is paramount, right? Zero accidents, etc. Now, so if any platform that can be created by the government or an ecosystem that can be initiated by the government, probably that could be a great, starting point to launch or realize this vision, which you're already doing. From an OEM perspective, obviously, OEMs need a lot of incentives, a lot of support from the government standpoint. And because then only they can bring all these best of the world, opportunities and experiences to the Indian consumer. And as Mr. Chaba said, that, we still have 5 stars, but at the same time, we still have affordable food for various people. or affordable shelter. So these things will coexist for some time. And as Mr. Agarwal said, right, scale. To gain or to get that scale, it is important for us to have an enormous amount of data to take some decisions, and then only plan our investments in such a way that you can actually realize that scale. From the consumer standpoint, right, I mean, I would think as a personally as a consumer, I look forward to pay as you go kind of a model in such technologies. But I think consumers in India are in COVID times. We did a study and we figured out that Indian consumer had the highest anxiety level, but at the same time, they were the most enterprising, and they were willing to experiment more during this time compared to the rest of the world. So I think Indian consumer wants more. They need more. They want more experiences and the best of the world so that they can talk to everybody about it. That's what the Indian consumer wants to do. And finally, the last, the multiple stakeholders, which is at the end of the day, will get connected to these kind of platforms or technologies, right? Whether monetization, right? What are the various opportunities for monetization that exist that this technology brings in? I think we have a bright future. I mean, obviously it'll take time to scale this up, but at the same time, given what the luxury brands have been doing, and now with the new entrants like MG, etc., and various others who are trying to now get into this ADS as a service, or not as a service, but as an offering to the Indian consumer, we can see this whole ADS as a offering, scaling up very soon in the market. So I think that's all right now. Thank you so much for joining me, and it was a wonderful discussion.
Thank you
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rainath.